Well, now on BBC Radio Ulster, folk singer Tommy Sands explores the origins of Ulster's most famous marching song, the Sash My Father Wore.
It's as old, but it's beautiful. Its colours, they are pine. It was worn in Derry, Aughrim, Enniskillen on the Boyne. That's known as the Orange Quadrille. That's where our forefathers fought and sustained civil and religious liberty. My father wore it as a youth, and bygone days of yore. So the 12th I love to wear, the sash my father wore.
The sash my father wore has been the anthem of the 12th of July as long as most people can remember. And if there's any tune that's going to get the loudest cheers from the people lining the road to the field, it's going to be this one. It can also strike a very different note for those out of step with the marching bands. I'm Tommy Sands, and in this programme, telling the incredible story of this most iconic song.
It's so but it is beautiful.
People grow up listening to it throughout the years, and it's sort of embedded in their heads.
It's probably the most important song to the Protestant Unionist Loyalist community.
Bygone days of yore, but it's
on the 12th I long to wear the sash my father wore.
Valerie Quinn is chairperson of the Confederation of Ulster Bands.
It's the one piece that you could guarantee that virtually every band knows. And it's definitely the one course that you could guarantee that every person spectating at the 12th of July knows. And it's almost like a reciprocal relationship between the bands and the spectators at the side of the road. You know, that there's an excitement, and when they start it, there'll be a cheer from the crowd, and that's probably why the sash is so enduring.
Here I am, a loyal Orangeman, just come across the sea. I have sung this on the 12th, like after the parade. Obviously the social element of the day. When the parading's over, the celebrations are over, and the band then would have a bit of a social gathering, so it would be sung, yes.
I'm sure that everyone has their own version of the song, but a few iconic elements turn up in most of them. The 12th, the siege of Derry, the battles fought in Aughrim, Enniskillen and the Boyne, and of course the actual sash itself. Trevor Stewart is a member of the oldest marching band in the country, the Churchill Flute Band.
It tells a brief story in that it's about an Orangeman going to see his brethren in Scotland, and basically about having a good time with them, singing and dancing. And then it goes on to talk about how he has to leave now, and he hopes that they'll pray for his kind of safe travel back home. And in return, he then says he's looking forward to return to see them.
So who is this poor stranger? That's me singing an old Irish song called Irish Molly-O, a song I discovered while poking through old manuscripts and songsters in a log cabin in the snowy Poconos of Pennsylvania over 20 years ago. She's young and she is beautiful, her legs I've never known. As I'm sure you just heard, it has more than a few things in common with the sash. It's widely believed that the sash shares the same air as Irish Molly-O, but would you believe the history of the sash is even more complicated than that?
From my father's great ancestors it descended with galore. It's the relics of those days and see the hat my father wore.
Over the next hour, I hope to shed some light on one of the country's most curious mysteries by unearthing some very rare material, and we'll be asking, who wrote the sash? begin our journey in Belfast, on the corner where Sandy Row meets the Lisburn Road, in an area that is right in the heart of 12th celebrations each year. 70-year-old George Chittick grew up on Sandy Row and has been part of the Orange Order since a teenager. He was recently made the worshipful master of the Belfast County Grand Orange Lodge.
George, was that the right knock?
Well, good yeah, anyway. Welcome to Sandy Row Orange Hall.
Thank you very
the
much.
Oldest Orange Hall in Belfast. Sandy Row, you're in my heart wherever I go. The Blackstop River will cease to flow ere I forget Sandy Row. This is a colouret which the County Grand Master of Belfast wears. On occasions, if it's an official occasion, like a 12th I or a service which the county's involved in, I would wear this one.
That's a very special one. It's a very valuable one too,
Yeah.
with the colour of the medallions and so on.
Yeah, I have not value, but they say it's worth over nearly 45 to 75,000 £. I don't know now, but it's solid gold.
The Sash My Father Wore, the song, do you remember the first time you heard it?
Well, very hard. It was a come all ye. Everybody sung a sash, and it was a thing that happened. You're having what they call a smokers' night. You had men in here who would have sang songs, but always the sash was always one of the songs, along with the orange flute and different ones. I got there, bottle of carva. You name it, they were all sung in here, and that's the way it was. You know, everybody
just sitting around like having a singing session.
Yeah, there was drink, like, you know, they maybe had a few beers, you know.
Oil the throat.
Oil the throat.
Sure, it's old, but it is beautiful, and the scholars, they are fine.
It was worn at Derry, Aughrim, Enniskillen, and the Boyne. My father wore it as a youth in bygone days of yore. But it's on the 12th I love to wear the sash my father wore.
Oh, it's now I'm going to leave you. Good luck to you, I'll say. And
These Kellies, or gatherings, would have happened in pubs and halls up and down and around the countryside. In 1960, a series of field recordings across the County Down were collected by the Smithsonian Centre in the United States, and the collection was called The Orangeman of Ulster and included the Sash, sung by Joe Ullam at Bell's Pub in Banbridge. The notes attached to the recording described the Sash as probably the best loved of the Orange songs, and is usually sung towards the end of the evening when everyone is feeling sentimental.
from north to south, from east to west, over from pole to pole, we'll onward march in spite of foe as those mighty oceans roll. For we never will.
A lot of these songs, they're raw and emotional, and they come from a different time.
As we'll defend it and guard it from all.
Very similar to how old Irish rebel ballads were sung from the other side of the road.
Together we will join, as did our noble fathers with King Billy at the Boyne.
But these are historical Orange ballads passed down in gatherings like this for centuries. Dr. John Molan is a leading researcher in Ulster folk music.
People sang right up to early in this century. People sang at their work, people sang when they were playing, people sang when they were at home, people sang in the pub, people sang in the street, people sang everywhere. Everyone knew songs. Some people knew hundreds, most people knew one or two just, but everybody sang, and consequently everyone was very used to the idea that singing would go on. And again, of course, as far as Orange songs are concerned, there could have been formal gatherings, as there later on were in the 20th century, Orange balls, Orange soirees of that kind, and singing would have taken place then.
They wrote about everything, so they did.
Any newsworthy event was put into song?
Any newsworthy event was put into song. Because obviously in those days, a long time ago, they didn't have wide access to radio, and there definitely wasn't TV. So the way of spreading news and continuing stories and get the stories out there was through song, through the medium of song and ballads.
For we never will surrender in sunshine or in storm.
The themes of Orange songs. There are a lot of songs in praise of King William. There are a lot of songs in praise of Protestant heroes like William Blacker, like Johnson of Ballykilbeg. There would have been songs outlining Orange beliefs, that is, Orange beliefs in the excellence of Protestantism or Puritanism or whatever. There would also have been a number of songs about incidents in, say, 1641, when there was a Catholic rebellion against the Protestant settlers.
The blood did stain the waters red as their bones lay on the ground. When shore entombed beneath that stream that flows through Portadown.
In 1798, when similarly the Irish rose against the British, and similarly again there would be sort of what I would call warning songs. Be aware, watch out, they're only waiting to come and get you.
In TCDs the books are there, the history to show. The torture those poor Protestants were forced to undergo.
The Sash would be slightly different from a lot of the older songs in that they tell stories of battles, Battle of the Diamond, Dolly's Bray, and so on. Whereas the Sash is very much, it's a social song, and it's also a more simplified version, which I think probably explains its popularity today.
So, if the lyrics of the Sash are different to other Orange songs of the 19th century, is it as old as we believe it to be? George remembers something that he heard a few years ago that may help us on our quest.
There was a man, 1990, when we celebrated the third centenary of the Boyne. There was a man singing the thing. It was a Sash, but it wasn't the same words. It was, I wear it with galore, for on the 12th day of July, the Sash my father wore. But there was different words to it, you know.
Was the air the same?
The air was, no, it was a different word, different tune.
Different tune?
It was a different tune, but I remember him singing in the Ulster Hall. It was terrific. And he brought the house down.
And was the chorus the same? More
No, it was different. There was words in it, you know. It was old, but it was beautiful. But I wear it with galore, for on the 12th day of July, it's a Sash my father wore.
So there's another version of the Sash. You would expect that the words or melody would have been recorded in one of the many collections of songs from the 19th century. But as John Molden says, the results of any search are surprising.
For such a song which so encapsulates the spirit of Orangism and some of the local feeling of Orangism as well, it's surprising that it's absent from John Nicholson's work, the ballad sheet printer who finished in 1909, or of any of the Orange songbooks 1907, 1911 up to now. Had it been around, it would have been there.
However, in 1935, the Scottish publisher Mozart Allen printed a book of songs called The Orange Standard by Richard Hayward, and there on page 6, the words and music of the Sash my father wore. Sure, I am an Ulster Orangeman, from Erin's Isle I came, to see my Glasgow brethren all of honour and of fame, recorded on Decca Records, I see down at the bottom of the page here. Moderato. Well, we have managed to track down this recording and believe it to be the very first recording of the Sash.
Sure, I'm an Ulster Orangeman, from Erin's Isle I came, to see my my forefathers who fought in days of yore, all on the 12th day of July in the Sash me father wore. It's all but it's beautiful, it's the best you ever seen. Been worn for more nor 90 years in that little Isle of Green. From my orange and purple forefather it descended with galore. It's the terror to them papish boys the Sash me father wore.
Well, as you can hear, it's certainly very different to the song we know today, even if there are still some familiar words to be found.
It's all but it's beautiful, it's the best you ever seen.
But there's no mention of Derry, Aughrim, Enniskillen and the Boyne. And like George remembered, the word galore is in there.
It's the terror to them papish boys the Sash me father wore.
And of course, it's certainly a little bit more aggressive in its sentiments as well, with the line, it's a terror to them papish boys the Sash my father wore, which definitely isn't found in the current version of the Sash. But despite all that, the most incredible difference is the air.
Once more to be welcomed back by Orangemen in the Sash me father wore.
So if you think that sounds nothing like the Sash you'd hear in the 12th, this is the sound of the renowned Churchill Flute Band performing the Sash especially for us, as it was originally meant to sound. Listen to this. What does Valerie Quinn, chairperson of the Confederation of Ulster Bands, think of that?
I actually prefer the air of Richard Hayward's, the original air. It's probably something that I would prefer to play than the air of the Sash today, but it's a slightly more complicated rhythm, so it would be very hard to get a crowd singing along with it.
It wouldn't be as accessible.
It wouldn't be as accessible. The Sash itself, the one that we all know, is a very, very simple melodic air, just a simple triad chord progression, so it's very easy to sing along with. The verse and the chorus have the same flow, exact same tune, so it's not too difficult to learn from that point of view, whereas Richard Hayward's is a lovely air itself, but would probably not stick as well in the memory.
In the county Tyrone, near the town of Dungannon, where many's eruption myself had a hand in, Bob Williamson lived a weaver by trade, and as all others thought him a stout orange blade. On the 12th of
Richard Hayward released many other Orange ballads around the same time. These Orange songs that he popularised are the ones that are still sung today.
Now the boys in the townland made some stir upon it, and Bob had to fly to the province of Connaught. He flew
with his wife on his lessons to boot, and along with the rest went the old orange flute. You may talk of your kings, guards, Scots, grades and all. You may talk about your kilties and the bonny 42, and of every other regiment that's under the Queen's command, but the Southdown militia is the terror of the land.
Very well, Enniskillen, I leave you a while.
Fare thee well, Enniskillen, fare thee well for a while, and all around the waters of your lovely isle, and when the war is over, we return in full bloom, and we'll all welcome home the Enniskillen dragoon.
It's all but it's beautiful, it's the best you ever seen.
So who was Richard Hayward? Is he the man behind the Sash? Journalist Paul Clements is researching his life and his work.
Well, Richard Hayward grew up in Larne, and he was educated at Larne Grammar School. And he would have travelled all around East Antrim. He loved going to the glens and walking in the countryside, and he spent quite a bit of time in Island Magee. He'd have been very interested, even as a boy, in the antiquities of the Irish countryside and what he found there. And that was something that just stimulated him from a young age, just getting to know outdoors Ireland and what Ireland was about and its history. And one of the big influences on him at a young age was when he was growing up in Larne. His family had a maid in the house to help them with the household work, and she came from County Monaghan, and he heard her singing during the day. He'd have heard her singing traditional Irish ballads and songs in both Irish and in English, and something just clicked within him about hearing those songs at that time. This would have been around 1900, at the turn of the century, and he just decided he wanted to get interested and find out a bit more about those songs, about where they came from, who wrote them, and what the stories were behind them.
And if ever you're wanting a right hearty welcome, just come to the sweet little town of Aughrim.
So it was a very, very seminal influence in Richard Hayward's early life and in his early days. After he got married then, he moved to live in Belfast, and he lived mostly in North Belfast during his adult life, doing a variety of different types of jobs. He's known for his travel books that he's written, 10 fairly substantial travel books. He made some early black and white movies in Ireland in the 1930s, which were really period pieces from that time. And he was also involved in the drama world. He was a theatrical impresario. He staged the plays of Tom Carnduff in Belfast and Dublin, and he acted himself. He was an actor on stage and in the films, and it was in the films then that he sang the songs that he had started to collect probably when he was in his early 20s. He started to collect these songs all over Ireland on his travels.
Though I'm here in this strange land, my heart is in Ireland, and in that fair spot it will always remain. Not in Galway or Kerry or the city of Derry, but where I was born in the town of Aughrim.
He might have picked up a verse or a fragment. He would then have collected that and arranged it in just to suit himself, and then he would have recorded that with Columbia or Decca in later years.
Fortune shine down on the sons and the daughters that hail from that sweet little town of Aughrim.
Another book of Hayward's was a 1925 collection called Ulster Songs and Ballads, which included a wider range of songs like Skibbereen and Willie Riley's Courtship.
Was on a pleasant morning in the budding time of spring.
But what's interesting about his 1925 Ulster Songs and Ballads book is that there's no mention of the Sash, even though it contains songs like the Old Orange Flute. If it was widely sung at this stage, surely Hayward would have included it. So maybe he hadn't heard of the Sash until after this time. In 1933, Decca Records produced a catalogue, a complete list of all the records Hayward had made by that point. Included on the list is The Sash My Father Wore, but we discovered something very interesting further down the list, because recorded at the same session in London in June 1931 was another song called The Hat My Father Wore.
I'm Paddy Miles, an Irish lad just come across the sea, and for singing and for dancing, sure I hope that I'll please ye. I can sing or dance with any man as I did in days of yore, and on Patrick's Day I love to wear the hat my father wore. It's old, but it's beautiful, it's the best you've ever seen. Been worn for more than 90 years in that little Isle of Green. From my father's great ancestors it descended with galore. It's the relics of old days and see the hat me father wore.
I'm Paddy Miles, an Irish boy, just come across the sea. For singing or for dancing boys, I think that I'll please ye. For I'm an Ulster Orangeman from Erin. I came to see my Glasgow brother in all of honour and of fame, and to tell them of my forefathers who fought in days of yore. I bid you all good evening, good luck to you, I say, and when I cross the ocean, I hope for me you'll pray. And when I'm going to leave yous all, good luck till yous, I'll say, and as I cross the raging sea, my orange flute I'll play. Returning to my native town, to Isle Belfast once more, to be welcomed back by Orangemen in the Sash my father wore. How does the other boy finish that one? Oh, going to my native land, to a place called Ballymore, to be welcomed back to Paddy's land, with a hat my father wore.
My father's great ancestors, it descended with galore. It's the relics of old days and see the hat my father wore.
Definitely serious comparisons there. Let's play them together to see how it sounds.
It's old, but it's beautiful, it's the best you ever seen. Be worn for more than 90 years, that little Isle of Green. From my father's great forefather, it descended with galore. It's the relics of old days and boys, the hat my father wore. I'm here, I am in Glasgow town, with boys and girls to say. And I hope that in
A little bit of a tussle going on there for space in the same melody and the same place. So what's this hat song all about? And which came first, the hat or the sash?
There's a sweet garden spot in our memory. It's the place we were born and reared. It's long years ago since we left it, but return there we will if we're spared.
Another publication of Irish songs called Walton's Treasury of Irish Songs and Ballads name checks Johnny Patterson beside the hat my father wore, and there are numerous other sources that say the same. One of Patterson's best known songs is The Stone Outside Dan Murphy's Door.
We were poor, and the sunlight were sung in the days we were young, on the stone outside Dan Murphy's door.
Patterson was from County Clare and was a very famous singing clown during the latter half of the 19th century. He was known as the Rambler from Clare. Harry Bradshaw is co-founder of the Irish Traditional Music Archive in Dublin.
The Johnny Patterson Clown Act, it's not the slapstick clown that we would recognise today. His act consisted of, he would gather local material when he arrived in a new town, find out who the characters were, what the local news was, and adopt this local news into his songs. The Garden Where the Praties Grow is another one of the songs which we're told Johnny composed. But it's interesting that The Garden Where the Praties Grow is a well-known song in Irish music and was recorded by no less than the great John McCormack.
nor did she wear a chignon, I'd have you all to know, and I met her in the garden where the praties grow.
On St. Patrick's Day, 1876, Patterson left Ireland and set out to conquer America.
I tracked down appearances that he made in 1877 in New York in Tony Pastor's theatre. Now, Tony Pastor was to become, within 15 years or so, the father of vaudeville, and he was said to be the one who created the vaudeville theatre. In 1877, Johnny also appeared in the Theatre Comique in Broadway.
Dr. Mick Maloney is a professor of folklore at New York University and an expert in Irish-American history through song.
Well, the year that Johnny Patterson arrives in New York was a great year, really, to come into any music scene for an Irish person. And vaudeville was really cleaned up variety theatre. No profanity, no alcohol, a place where the whole family could come to.
And vaudeville was to dominate American popular culture for the next 50 years. Now, in all of that, there were Irish songs. There were songs that were brought from Ireland. There were new songs written in America. This is before the recording industry, which started off in 1879, invented by Thomas Edison. And the way that performers had for presenting their material to the public to be bought, there were two ways. One was penny broadsides, which had been around for hundreds of years in Europe and America. The others were songsters. They were little songbooks, and they were like the CDs of today. They were something that the artist would sell after the performance, and it had to have popular material, something that the audience would like, something that the artist would have sung on stage.
I suppose a good example of the extent of Johnny's fame in the States was that he was approached by two publishers, and during his stay of 9 years in the States, the publishers brought out two collections of his songs in two songbooks, so he must have been quite an attraction.
Many of these songsters have been lost to history, but looking through his Irish Clown and his inter-ocean songsters, we couldn't find any mention of the hat my father wore. Surely if he'd been singing it, it should have been in these books.
He drew in the songs that were current at the time, were popular. Some of these were traditional, others were newly written songs. But the hat my father wore, he definitely sang it. I've seen accounts of him singing it. Whether he composed it or not, we just don't know.
But whilst investigating the songs of Patterson, we uncovered another songster, and what we found inside was a revelation. We asked musicologist David Byers to take a look.
Well, now, this is a very interesting, strange one in a way, in that it was published in the States by Johnny Roach, who was very much one of those vaudeville entertainers, and I think a big name in his day. In 1874, he published this volume of various songs, many of which are part of the whole sort of the Irish stage character.
Yes.
And the hat my father wore is very much one of those. And he says that it was composed by Daniel McCarty. Now, I take it that means that the words were from Daniel McCarty, because then he puts this statement, Irish Molly O.
So perhaps the song wasn't written by Patterson after all, but rather Daniel McCarty, and then popularised by Johnny Roach to the tune of Irish Molly O, 2 years before Patterson had even arrived in America. Digging deeper, we also discovered, in a book called Old Irish Folk Music and Songs by historian P.W. Joyce, the musical notes of Irish Molly O, one of the rare times that they ever appeared in print.
This is the melody which we now believe to be the one that goes with this. It was published by Joyce in 1909, and it's very much, to me anyway, a typical sort of Irish lilting song like this. Trick. It just, minimum harmonies are needed. It's a modal tune. It's in this. So, as I say, it's got that hint of predating the sort of major minor tonalities that we use today. It's got the hint of being really antique. Apart from that, we know nothing about it. It rarely seems to be published as a tune.
Irish Molly O, how did I get from it to the Sash? Let's hear the notes of Irish Molly O played against Hayward's Hat My Father Wore.
I'm Paddy Miles, an Irish lad just come across the sea, and for singing and for dancing sure I hope that I'll see.
And now with Hayward's Sash My Father Wore.
For I'm an Ulster Orangeman from Erin's Isle I came, to see my Glasgow brethren all of honour and of fame.
So the melody of Hayward's Sash is Irish Molly O. And not the melody of the song that is sung today. da-da-dum. Completely different. After all these years, it appears that Irish Molly-O is the root of both the sash my father wore and the hat my father wore, and it dates back well over 50 years before either of these songs. Here's John Molden.
The song Irish Molly-O is pretty certainly an Irish or perhaps a Scottish song, which tells the story of a soldier who encounters a young woman, wants to marry her, and is thwarted by the girl's father, and eventually comes to some kind of sticky end. Irish Molly-O was his downfall. But the interesting thing about this song is that whereas it tells a commonplace story of not necessarily unrequited, but certainly unequal love, in that the soldier is not socially the girl's equal and therefore is unable to marry, common 19th century matter. But the chorus is very curious. That is, the chorus begins, she is young, or sometimes she is gallant, she is beautiful. And it's quite noticeable the extent to which this echoes the words of the first line of the chorus of the sash. It's old and it is beautiful, or it is old but it is beautiful, or however it's put.
When I first discovered Irish Molly-O in the snowy Poconos of Pennsylvania 20 years ago, I was first intrigued by the beauty of how the song lamented division, one of the many reasons I thought I should record it. However, the mix-up of melodies over the years has meant that we have all been singing Irish Molly-O to the wrong tune, including myself. Time to correct things. For the first time possibly in recording history, here is Irish Molly-O to the original air. As I went out to walking one morning in May, I met a pretty Irish girl by chance upon the way. I put my hand into my pocket, it happened to be so, and pulled a guinea out to treat my Irish Molly-O. She is young, beautiful, the fairest one I know. She's a primrose of old Ireland, all for my guinea-O. And the only one entices me is Irish Molly-O. We now know it is Johnny Roach who adapted that air of Irish Molly-O as the air for the hat my father wore. So who was he? Mick Maloney.
He was a pretty famous vaudevillian. He was Irish-American. He had several songsters. He appears a lot in the Odell's Annals of the New York stage, appearing in various vaudeville theatres. And if Johnny Roach sang a song, other people would learn it. His songsters would have sold from coast to coast.
So could Patterson have borrowed the hat my father wore?
It seemed to have been in general use and popular throughout the tradition. And for that reason, Johnny, I think, must have added it to his songbook and performed it wherever he went.
Johnny Roach and Johnny Patterson, without a doubt, have been part of the same circle of performers in vaudeville. And they would have met, I don't know how often they would have met. There's no living record of that, but they certainly would have met.
Patterson travelled back to Ireland, finding himself living in Corporation Street in Belfast. And this could very well be how the hat my father wore ended up in Ulster.
Roll for the country stuff. Man, you can man. Well, after 30 years of home, I make the bulges know how we can look at it. Ah, what a better day.
Oh, sure, hat me father wore.
And this is the first known recording of the hat my father wore, released in 1921 by Matty Haskins. The Matty Haskins recording or the arrangement Patterson brought back to Ireland, A man like Richard Hayward would no doubt already be aware of the song by the late 1920s. Another popular musician of the day, Sam Carson, releases his own version of the Sash in 1936, but along the way, something has changed.
Here I am, an Orangeman, just come across the sea, and for singing and for dancing, sure I hope I will play thee. I can sing and dance with any man as I did in days of yore, and it's on the 12th I love to wear the sash my father wore.
For the first time, the words and the air are similar to the version we know today. McCarthy, Roach, Patterson, Haskins, Hayward and Carson, they all played their part in the evolution of the song we call the Sash.
In bygone days of yore, and it's on the 12th I love to wear the sash my father wore.
So, this takes us to the next big mystery. Where did Carson get that famous melody from? One interesting theory takes us back a full 12 months before Carson's song was released to a song called The Lakes of Pontchartrain. John Molden takes up the story.
The Lakes of Pontchartrain is the lake near New Orleans. It's an American song which is made in an Irish pattern, but it was definitely made in America. And the curious thing is that it came back here. It came back here with a singer who then taught it to another singer, a singer called Paddy McCluskey from Corky near Lough Giel in mid-Antrim. And Paddy McCluskey sang it in 1935 for Sam Henry, and Henry presented it as number 619 of his Songs of the People collection.
When you look at the Lakes of Pontchartrain as printed by Sam Henry in the Northern Constitution in Coleraine, there are some remarkable similarities. Do you know these notes? You know, hey, we're... But actually, as Sam Henry has published it, it's very much 3 and a bar. It's a strange one. You can waltz to it. Turns out this is a melody used quite widely across the States. It's a relatively popular air, it seems, and I know that Professor David Cooper, he has pointed out that the Lakes of Pontchartrain is a very popular American melody, well, relatively popular, I suppose, in the folk world, and he has published a version by one called Charlie Rutledge, presumed to be maybe a well-known traditional singer, and his version then of that tune, which, remember, Sam Henry and 3 and a bar. So Charlie Rutledge is this. Oh dear. So we touch a tin pan alley in the middle, little syncopation there at the end. But yes, hey, it's
starting to move down the road
to the Sash as we know the tune.
Paddy McCluskey sang it for the BBC, but the curious thing is that he sang it this way. By swamps and alligators, I lately took my way through railway lines and crossings my weary footsteps through. Which is the Sash to the life. Until they don't know evening, some higher grounds to gain. Till I fell in with a Creole girl by the Lakes of Pontchartrain.
that's
See, the first line is...
that's a literal playing of what's been notated. When you hear Paddy sing it,
yes,
that's pushed into 3 and a bar. It becomes a waltz. When you hear him sing it, it's nowhere near that.
Yes.
Now, was the Sam Henley being accurate or approximate, trying to push the singing into that, or and Paddy gradually loosen up to become what you hear?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah. There was just a thought that struck me that I wanted to put across what you thought of it. You know, if you play the original Sash, we'll say, we call the original Sash, the one to the air of the hat and Irish Molly, could you envisage maybe like a bass brass section underneath that? Just play it a moment again, because there's something came into my mind. I knew you'd have much better taken this than I would.
That one?
Yes. Play it again, please. Pure speculation, but
you think that the tune as we know it could come out of that?
A special orchestral or a brass arrangement, but pure wild speculation.
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced.
No. Yeah. Your man Beethoven or one of them boys get at it. It is Beethoven.
Yes, indeed.
Speculation would seem to suggest something along those lines.
I have heard the story. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. There is something, and I can't think now, senility creeping in, but I do hear the green grassy slopes of the Boyne I think it was Beethoven, but in the first piano concerto of Beethoven, which dates, funnily enough, the Irish Connection, 1798 or thereabouts, yes. You have a little wind moment just before the piano comes into the piano concerto, really not far into it, where you hear this. You certainly make it fit the sash. Dum, 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 dum. Nearly, but it's not quite. I mean, yes. To be honest, look, you only have so many notes in a scale. The chances of a duplication of something happening, and it's a cliche figure. It's it's all something that happens all the time.
Whilst no one can really be sure of its exact origin, what we do know is the Sash started life as Irish Molly-O, a song that travelled across the Atlantic to America, reworked as The Hat My Father Wore, travelled back across the Atlantic to Ulster, and evolved into one of the most iconic songs of the last 100 years, the Sash. But of course, this isn't the first Orange ballad to have evolved over the years. In reality, many Orange, Irish, Scottish and American songs are all interlinked in some way or other.
You know that one, The Farmer and the Devil? Yeah.
That's
the
called
Orangeman and the Devil.
Orangeman.
seems to be an Irish tune, would I be right in saying, The Farmer and the Devil? It's quite a nice one, probably one that's very rarely ever known.
A song I'm going to sing to you, so listen on to me. There's nothing curious in it, boys, and that you'll plainly see. It's a song that every Orangeman can sing with loyalty. Some simple homely verses of our Orange ABC. For they're hanging men and women there for wearing all the green.
Awful lot of jigs and reels. Haste to the Wedding is one. Apples in Winter. The Purple Marksman. You then have sort of American influence as well, with the Old Log Cabin, the Yellow Rose of Texas, and so on. So there just seems to be all influences in it. A lot of Robbie Burns songs would have been used, because obviously Robbie was very popular over here, so you'll have things like Green Grow the Rushes O and The Lee Rig and Auld Lang Syne. So there's lots of influences in there which then people have put their own words to and their own lyrics to.
And when you go to see the show, rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bow breaks, the cradle will fall. Then will come baby, cradle and all. If you listen to the words and you listen to the tune, rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, quicken it up. Rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bow breaks, the cradle will fall. Then will come baby, cradle and all. Lily Bolero. Well, it was actually political satire. The wind would blow William's fleet across to England, and he arrived in Brixham with a banner, the liberty of England and the Protestant religion, I will maintain. The motto of the House of Orange is, I will maintain.
Lily Bolero.
Lily Bolero is the tune of democracy. It was used during the war by Churchill. He told the British foreign broadcast to start off with Lily Bolero.
It's old, but it's beautiful. It's the best you've ever seen. Been worn for more than 90 years in that little Isle of Green. From my father's great ancestors it descended with galore. It's the relics of old days, and see the hat my father wore, the sash my father wore.
And of course, the evolution of the sash didn't stop there. Before it became the song we know today, some would argue that another layer of meaning was added to the song. In the words of the great original Orange balladeer himself, Richard Hayward, Orange ballads grew in the manner of folk songs from the body of the Loyal Orange Institution, and, like folk songs, their authorship is unknown. And, for the most part, they have been wedded to tunes already current amongst the people of Ulster. I have sung them in the authentic style of the Ulster country singer, and it is inconceivable that they should be sung in any other way.
Sash, My Father Wore, presented by Tommy Sands. The programme was produced by Cameron Mitchell.